Good evening, folks. This is my third attempt at making a video without rambling on too much. Last one I did was like 30 minutes. Anyway, I got asked today on YouTube why I haven't made any more videos. My response to that gentleman, thank you for asking the question. You know who you are. I forget right off the top of my head. I haven't made any because most of what I have to say has already been said by others out there who know more than I do. But some of those guys have shops. Some of those guys want money. Some of those guys been in it for a lot longer, know a lot more than I do. But I'm here more or less for the guy who's only scratching the surface. And just wants to know some of the basic stuff to help him transition from just somebody who hooks up a radio and expects it to get 3 miles and happy with it to somebody that goes from your basic Cobra Uniden radio to buying a bigger radio and reaching out further. Not necessarily bigger with an amp, but just a 10-11 meter versus a little Cobra. And that's kind of where I want to stay. I'm not interested in ham radios. I'm not a technician for antennas or CBs or ham radios, nothing of the sorts. This is all self-taught and discussions with people that I know in the business that know a hell of a lot more than me, and some personal findings. And today is what I want to talk about, or I should say tonight, because it's dark out. What time is it? Time now is 10:20 on the... What's today's date? I think today is the 27th. Today is 28th, sorry, of August. Actually, date, rate, and time right there. Look at that. Anyway, I just want to help the average guy. And once again, I'm not a technician, not trained in any sense of the word. Just all on my own, with the help of some people that I've talked to, either on the radio, through their website, or on the phone, whatever. And I see a lot of stuff out there that people are still believing that is a wives' tale. Now, without pointing out anybody specific, without saying they're a dumbass or they're smart, same thing goes to me. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm not saying I'm a dumbass. Let's learn some stuff. And it's out there. All you got to do is take the time to go learn. Because it's out there. Now, when I say learn, I'm not referring to going to Joe Blow's website that has this little nook in the bottom of his basement, with one light over some sort of oscilloscope that he purchased off of some dude that was at the flea market that he's already used and abused and smoked in and hammered on and all that sort of shit. Some guy that's got a little spot in the corner of his basement with his kids running around playing dinkies and everything. Oh yeah, I remember days when I played dinkies. That's a long time ago. Anyway, and his wife yelling at him to take out the garbage, but yet he's tuning on a little plastic table and got his little oscilloscope and his power meter. Ooh, a power meter. Yeah, that tells you how good your radio's working. That's not me. I kind of have a little bit more of an interest in the antenna side of things without getting deep into it than I do of tearing apart radio. I've tried to read some of the manuals and stuff of radios and what does this, what does that. That's way beyond my scope. I don't have any electronics background, so a lot of the stuff that's being said just goes over my head. Like the ARRL Bible. That book I bought, right on, I'm going to learn a pile of stuff and I'm going to reach out and touch somebody's arsehole from 5,000 miles away. Yeah, no, boy, was I wrong. A lot of that stuff went over my head. So I just relied on what other people from other sites would say, and Joe Blow would say, no, you got to use 18 feet of coax. So I kind of went with that thought for a while. And somebody said, no, you got to have this kind of coax, or you got to have this kind of radio, or you can't reach out to anybody without this size of an amp. You know what? All that is... I personally like to get a radio, no matter what radio it is, whether it be a Cobra, which I've got one home that I've had for eons. That little thing used to get at about 20 miles or so. And it was not because I knew anything. It was just because of the luck of the draw, so conditions, I'm going to say. And eventually I bought my Striker, and I've had 3 Strikers now, and I've had nothing but pure perfection with all 3 of them. Sold 2 of them now. I don't need 3 radios, and I got the one that I've had now for the last, 18. I think I bought the last radio I bought was in 2017. So I've had it since then, and it works like a freaking charm. So anyway, decided, I'm in a Cascadia. I worked on my antenna system, did some bonding to the truck. It worked well. I got out forever. Talked overseas at times, talked down to the States at times, talked across the street other times, Once again, conditions skip, la 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 la. And I just decided I wanted to learn more. And then by that time, I was taken out of that Cascadia and put into a Volvo. Not a fan of the Volvo. The last one that I had, go down the road, and do that. So I refused to put a radio into it because I figured it'll shake the shit out of it. So I didn't put a radio in. And then finally, when that was pretty much cured, I put a Cobra into that other Volvo. And I got the taste again of have a CB operator. So shortly after that, then it came that they took me out of that truck because it was due to go back. And I got into this truck. Now this truck, cubby hole up there. Where is it? Cubby hole up there. The last guy that was in this truck, he broke the bracket up there. I'm not paying for it to fix another one. The company wants to do it, they can put one in, but I'm not going to do it. And at the same time, the end for the coax that goes into your radio literally ripped off. So I said, frig that, I'm not using factory coax anyway, so there's no point in me doing anything. Then a few months ago in this truck here, you can't see it, but right about here somewhere, there's a big crack in the windshield. So I said, I'm going to wait till that's done before I consider putting a radio, because I want to find a way to mount it on the dash. I was given an idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to perfect that idea somehow. I just don't know yet. I'm working on it, tinkering. Thought about down here in this little cubbyhole section where I can buy one of those antenna radio brackets that you mount your radio to, and then it clamps onto that spot there. It would clamp on here, kind of a thing. But I said, that's out of the way. I don't like that, because when you're reaching down and to your right while you're driving to change the station on the radio or whatever, you have a tendency to go to the right, and that means to ditch or into another car that's alongside of you. So I said, no, got to mount it on the dash. Just got to figure out how. So in the meantime, I said, well, I might as well learn something about radios and antennas and what makes them tick a little bit more. Not so much the internal workings of either one, but how to set it up. And so I started, on some stuff that was online, just reading other people's stuff and what they've tried or not tried. And I just said, well, I'm going to go with some, I'm going to call it, for the lack of a better term, official publications that would be pure knowledge versus something that Joe Blow, who has that little place in his basement that I mentioned earlier. Now, I had heard somebody mention the book Reflections. And one day it just popped in my head, oh yeah, I should look that up. So I Googled it. Came across this book. Now, I've posted pictures on the Striker forum of Facebook saying I bought these books. And I've already learned stuff in it that I took for granted, that from people that were apparently in the know don't know what they think they know. This book here, published by the ARRL, which I'll take their word before I'll take Joe Blow down in the basement again, with his little analyzer nulling a piece of coax, Or the guy that says, "Oh no, you got to have 18 feet of coax because it's got to be a quarter wavelength to work right." Before I'm going to listen to those guys, I'm going to listen to the ARRL. Now, this particular book, as you can see, Reflections, Transmission Lines, and Antennas by Walter Maxwell. Apparently, on reading the preface on this book, he helped build some, other than his ham life, we'll call it, he's had dealings with people building antennas and stuff for satellites. So that tells me this guy knows his stuff. Because, NASA or any company that's going to spend, a couple of $1 billion to help put a satellite up in the sky don't want no little CB, Uniden CB in their satellite that's going to try to transmit thousands of miles. Actually, how many miles? I don't know. It's only a few hundred miles from the atmosphere down to Earth. But anyway, they're not going to spec some little old Cobra or Uniden or whatever, so they got to have some really serious stuff. So this book was recommended by a couple of sources, not to me directly, but I heard online, so I looked it up, sure enough. Tried to find, a breakdown of what was in the book, couldn't find it, so no big deal. I said, frig it, I'll spend a few bucks, take the chance. So I bought that one, and in the same breath, I found this one. Let me see if I can... Once again, this is by the ARRL as well, a trusted source in radio communications. I've only perused this one briefly because this book is going to help you understand the signal of what it does, where it goes, yada, yada, yada stuff. Just from the quick browse that I did with it. This one is going to teach you when the signal goes from your radio to the antenna, how to make that more efficient and how to make that antenna more efficient to do what it has to do. So in combination, these two books are going to teach you a lot of stuff. Now, neither book is going to be an easy read. It's not like you're reading, Archie and Jughead comics. There's going to be a lot of electronics terminologies and stuff that you probably need an encyclopedia to understand what it means. But it's still worth the money to go buy. Because there's lots in here, for example, that's going to debunk a lot of stuff that guys on different forums say, oh, no, you got to do this, you got to do that to make this work the way it... No. Wrong. And the worst thing you can do is tell a lot of these guys on these different forums that what they just typed out, and you got to thank them for taking the time to type out a phrase or statement of some sorts to say this is what works. You got to thank them anyway, no matter what. Now, whether you say it or think it, it's up to you. But they took the time to try to educate somebody. Now, mind you, they may be mistaken for whatever reason. I see a lot of mistakes on some of these forums that I've been on. So that's why I bought these books, so I can learn from a reliable source. You know who else does that? That'll raise a few feathers there. Anyway, so I bought these two books to learn something. Sure enough, a lot of stuff that I thought I knew based on what other people were saying, boy, was that wrong. And even today, not literally today, but even in these last few months that I would go on the Stryker forum in Facebook and talk about bonding, for example. Or when guys say that to use one piece of wire from your antenna bracket down to your frame. And I would counteract their statement, she'll say. And because I counteract their statement, all of a sudden, you can tell just the way they respond with their answers. That they don't want to learn. They think they know. But when the proof is out there, and you can tell them, hey, this is incorrect. Try this, this, and this, and this, versus that. And I promise you there will be a difference. But some guys are so stubborn and headstrong, say, no, my radio works so I get 6 miles out now, as before I could only get 2. Well, maybe you did something by a fluke, got something right by a fluke. These books are going to teach you more. Now, I don't want to be a ham technician. I'm not putting a radio in my house. I'm not formally trained in any sorts of the word. This is all done self-taught, talking to a few people, reading some stuff on websites. So this is all pretty much self-taught. And I'm not a whiz kid of any sorts. I'm your average guy. Now, I've perused this book. There's stuff here to be learned. It will teach you stuff. But I haven't really gotten into this book like I have this. I've read it twice so far. I've got to read another 200 more times to really soak in the parts that I feel would apply to me. Me and my striker and my 102 or my skip shooters well, I got LMR 240, and I've also got some stuff from Italy. From a company called Messi and Poloni, I think it's pronounced. And apparently, from my findings, that Messi and Poloni is incredible coax. It's better than LMR 400, better than LMR 240. It's thicker. It's about the same size as 400. I think slightly bigger or slightly smaller. I can't remember which. But look them up. MESSI and Poloni. Paloni. I think it's spelled. It's worth a look. Go read the specs for yourself and decide for yourself if that's something that you want. Now, I also bought this item called an NJ something X. I forget what it is. It's a glorified battery on a switch. And what you do is you hook your radio to this unit, turn it on, and it will hold a specific voltage for your radio. Because a lot of guys are going out and they're putting big wires on the back of the radio to try to keep the voltage up when they key up. And the factory stuff has been, I don't know if I've heard they've changed the factory power supply wire, and now they're gone to something a little bit bigger, but it increases the voltage. And other guys, even some shops, are saying no, it doesn't make a difference. Fuck yeah, it does. Excuse me, language. Bleep that out. I don't know how, but somebody can bleep it out for me if they know how. No, you can't even do that. But anyway, hope I don't get frigged for that F-bomb, that mistake. But anyway, yeah. Go learn. That's all you got to do. Buy a book. Spend $50, $100, however much these cost. I don't remember. It was under $100 Canadian. Probably under 75 US. I found them on Amazon. Go buy them. Go read. Go learn. I guarantee you will come out of this as a better operator, in the sense if you know a little bit more as to how to get your signal out and where your signal is going and how it's getting there. 2 books that are going to make wonders to your world. Why I got sidetracked with that NJX thing, whatever, I don't know. There was a point I was going to bring up. Anyway, forget that point. But anyway, long story short, buy a book. Buy 2. There's probably going to be more that applies, but it comes from the ARRL. They're published by the ARRL. I've got the Big Bible, which is way too detailed, way into it more than I want to be. These books, although they're not an easy read, they're well worth the buy, even for the layman. And you're going to learn a lot more, and you're going to debunk, whether you tell it to people or not, you're going to debunk a lot of these Mr. Know-It-Alls on the different forums. And I promise you, you will reach out further with whatever radio you have. And I won't say be any clearer, because that becomes part of the tune of a radio. But I will promise you, you'll probably reach out further. There's certain steps you got to do, like bonding, for example. That's one of my things. You got to bond a vehicle in order to, how can I put this, to make that transmit louder and further. And the same thing with your receive, so that you pick up more. So before, hypothetically, somebody well, think of it this way. When you're across the field from somebody, bonding on a truck will serve the same purpose. When you're out in the field and you're trying to talk to somebody from the other end, what do? You yell, right? So you can get out further. Bonding on a vehicle will help in the same principle. You're not adding more power, you're just getting the power that it has out more efficiently. Same thing with hearing. What do you do when somebody's talking back to you from across the field? You cup your hand behind your ear, and all of a sudden you can hear a little bit better. So it works on the same principle as a satellite dish. That dish kind of makes that signal go, and the same thing when it comes in. It's more focused, so you get better response from it one way or the other. Which is basically how a satellite dish works, because the antenna is the very center, and the big cone around it helps you shoot that signal out and get it back so that you can hear it and talk it. But yeah, this is where you learn this stuff. So I went to Amazon, I found them. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was under $75 US. I'm Canadian, so it costs a bit more. And anything that comes down east here in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, PEI, New Brunswick costs more because, well, we're at the arse end of Canada. But we're the best part of Canada. Everybody likes a nice arse, right? But anyway, look into it on Amazon or your favorite retailer. Purchase a couple of good books. Spend some time and learn. And when you learn something, come back and tell me. Come back and find this, either this video or one of my others that I got out. Once again, I'm not a technician of any sorts, not trained in any way other than just reading and watching and learning from other people and so on. Once you've learned something to better your system that you already have, or without buying an amp, you just changed your coax or you just changed your antenna. And not every antenna works the same on every truck. Like, different trucks will work better with one antenna because of where and how it's mounted. Same thing with I suddenly lost track. Anyway, let's go with the Predator 10K, one of my favorite antennas. That'll work well on a classic style truck, but not so well as on more of these aerodynamic trucks, because now your coil is much lower and your antenna is going to be shorter, and height is might. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to learn to get the most out of your system. You may move from a Freightliner Cascadia today to a Kenworth, in which top load antenna will work better for a lot of the Kenworths. And then all of a sudden you get a classic style Pete or a classic style Western Star. Well, then you can get away with a Predator 10K because they'll work real well on something like that. But once again, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, pick up one of these books. And when you learn something and when your system works better, come back and let me know. Just for the sake of knowing that I did something to help somebody. That's all I'm doing this for. Because people have taught me things. I want to help teach somebody else stuff, so that they know more and they can take advantage of what they've purchased and get the most value for their money and not have to spend a fortune. Like these guys that are going out and spending a minimum $500, $700 to $1,000 to $5,000 on an amplifier just so that they can talk over people. I like to do that without an amp. Not to say I'm going to out-talk somebody that's got twice the power of me, but, if you set your power up right, and your antenna is done right, and you got the good coax, and yada, 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 you'd be surprised how much, you get heard. So go out. Remember who does that? Go out and buy yourself some books, learn some shit. When you learn something, and you try it, and it does something good, come back, let me know. If it doesn't do anything for you, come back and let me know. We'll figure out what's wrong. Anyway, what time is it now? 10:43. Jeez, I should have been in bed half an hour ago. All right, guys, gals, purchase your books. study, and we'll hear you on the airwaves.